closing on the NFL season, which means everyone gets antsy, which means we get a lot of speculation. We get a lot of rankings, and that's going to lead to a lot of rants. And we're going to recap some of those with our own rankings and a little bit of rants as well too. So I'm going to go ahead and start by talking about the one that was recently released from executive coaches, players, talking about the top 10 quarterbacks for 2022. Last week, we talked about the top 10 worst quarterback situations. A quick rundown of the executive coaches and players poll. They had Dak Prescott at 10, Deshaun Watson at 9, Russell Wilson at 8, Justin Herbert at 7, Matthew Stafford at 6, Joe Burrow at 5, Tom Brady at 4, Josh Allen at 3, Patrick Mahomes at 2, and Aaron Rodgers at 1, the back-to-back MVP. And, well, if anyone unfortunately has been on Twitter or social media at all, it has set the world on fire. And since it came out as well, too, with arguments. And, we can go back and we can go on and on about that. But the point is, you and I are going to make our own top 10 list today. We're going to look at it and make our rankings of the quarterbacks as well, too. We're going to start from 10 and work our way up to 1. And you know what, Kelcey? I'm going to go ahead and kick us off because I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off for this one as well, too. Number 10, I'm going to start because we're going to also give a couple quick honorable mentions at the end. I have two guys that I consider, when it comes to voting, they're called swing states. Well, these are what I call the swing quarterbacks. They can either skyrocket up or they can drop down faster than the stock market. So I'm going to start with one of those at number 10. I got Deshaun Watson sitting at number 10 as well. This is assuming he plays the majority of the season as well, too. Let's start with that. But last time we saw him, he led the league in passing yards at 70% completion, but they only won 4 games. So my question is, A, do we see that same Deshaun Watson? And B, does he actually get better somehow as well, too? Like, because he's still, 25, 26 years old? You're climbing into your quarterback prime still. And honestly, before the incidents where he wasn't playing as well, he was always kind of in that 7 to 10 range for me personally as well. So I'm basically, everybody who was ahead of him previously, none of them got worse, unfortunately, for him, really. And then a couple guys got better because quarterbacks don't age now, unfortunately. So anytime you miss, your resume drops a little bit. So I have him sitting at 10, but he's one of the swing quarterbacks for me. He could skyrocket up this list if he builds on the last time we saw him. He could be up in that 5-4 range, or he could plummet really quickly as well, too. What I do think is interesting is everyone talks about him going to the Browns, how talented, how great of a roster they are, which is true. I don't know if they're necessarily better than his 2019 Texans roster, though. That one that was up 24-0 on the Chiefs, or even that 2018 roster where they got into the playoffs and he was the second best quarterback in the division at the time. So I think they're very equivalent type of rosters, which he was really good. He was a top 10 quarterback, but I don't know if that propels him into like that 3-4-ish range. So I am curious to see how he molds with this new offense and with this new personnel, because it's a deep roster. We talked about it. We thought last year they were a Super Bowl contender with Baker Mayfield. So in theory, Deshaun Watson slides in, still a contender, but we will have to see. But I'm going to put Deshaun Watson at number 10 with the very high caveat of he can swing up or down 5 spots in the blink of an eye.
Okay. All right. You know what? I personally not going to put Deshaun Watson on my top 10 list. That's more down to the fact I haven't seen him play in a year now.
And that is the ultimate. That's why he's the ultimate pendulum for me.
Plus, it's going to be top 10 quarterbacks going into 2022. And, well, he still has that whole will he be suspended, will he not be suspended conversation still to be had. And that is also a part in that I'm adding in as well. Which, surprise, surprise, actually, my number 10 is also one of those guys that I do believe is a guy that I think this is his season to either make or break his career. I think he's either going to, like you said, skyrocket or plummet. That the odds are he should, given everything around him, he should still be able to excel. However, he has a big missing weapon going into the season, which is why he's only at 10 and not any higher. And for me, that is Kyler Murray sitting in Arizona. Obviously, you've done a lot of good things in your career. You still have that huge cloud over your head of you can't win a home playoff game to save your life. Really, I feel like a home game in general for Arizona feels like it's just insurmountable in a lot of cases for Kyler Murray for whatever reason. It just doesn't feel like he's fully sold out for it. But now with him getting Hollywood Brown, that opens up a lot of opportunities. Obviously, DeAndre will be back. It's not like it's forever gone. DeAndre will be back, and DeAndre will be great when he comes back still. It's not going to disappear. I do find it ironic that both of our number 10 picks have played with DeAndre at one point in time in their careers and helped to make them good. I do think that's a little part of it that I find funny. But with Kyler, it is it's more down to this is your season that you have to prove yourself. Your team is built around you. Your team is built to succeed. But at the same time, like he's not like a 12 to 15 guy like that they've gone through this process. Like, he is going to be that guy that goes through this process, and he either drops to the 12 to 15 range in my eyes, or could put himself in the top 7 to 5 range if he has a really good season. And I don't see why he couldn't have a good season. Everything's pointing the right way. Him and Cliff Kingsbury are still on the same page. I know rumors say otherwise, but rumors are rumors for a reason.
Hmm.
They're not fact. So we'll see. We'll have to wait and see with this one. But Kyler Murray for me is number 10.
I like it a lot. My only qualms with him are A, he still struggles to see the middle of the field, and B, the last 3 seasons he's had these weird moments at the end, like the last 5 games,
Yeah.
he just 5 to 7 games is just gone. So if he can keep that up through, he can easily climb this list. He's as dynamic as they come in. I love Hollywood Brown because he's an outside receiver that goes deep and vertical, and Kyler Murray can't throw him. He's the opposite of Lamar. He can't throw inside the numbers because he can't see. It's all smoke routes and fades and 9 routes, which he's incredible at. And who runs faster than Hollywood Brown? It's a very, very short list. So get him running up the sideline. Exactly, especially if DeAndre's on the other side double team. Good luck with it, everybody else. So I agree with you as well, too. It's everything is in position for Kyler to fly up this list as well, too. I'm going now to number 9 on my list. And number 9 is a guy who's perennially been in the top 5 for a greater part of the last 4 or 5 years, but has unfortunately dipped off a little bit as well, too. For some reason, they started giving him the nickname Mr. Unlimited, which I think is terrible because he does have his own limitations. But he is fantastic at what he does, one of the best in the game. I am looking at Russell Wilson, quarterback of the now Denver Broncos as well. The reason I have him at number 9 is last year we saw a lot of those limitations coming to play. Still has the struggles, still can't really throw intermediate or really short. It's very much bombs away. And I think, honestly, having a tight end with him is absolutely useless. That's why Denver got rid of Noah Fant without having to worry about it, because he's not going to really throw to the tight end hardly at all. It's not where his game is predicated. And his receivers, you want those vertical guys that run deep. It's very similar to Kyler Murray, but a little more tamed, I guess. He's still one of the best, most beautiful deep ball throwers in the game. You could say when you factor in accuracy, arc, all of that, he might be the best deep ball thrower in the game as well. So he's still got that. He's still the escape artist king as far as somehow finagling his way out of a sure sack or a sure situation. But those limitations as far as like being able to keep the offense on schedule, being able to kind of, it's like a very toned down version of LeBron, how they said LeBron is the system, no matter where he goes or who's around, it's his system. That's kind of what it is for Russell Wilson. You can't really put him in an offense and then have him plug and play. You have to play to his offense, which we have seen. We even seen Denver has came out and said, we are building the offense to Russ. We are catering it to Russ's skill set, which still fantastic, but there are limitations to it, which is why I have Russell at 9. But he's so darn good at what he does. He's still in the top 10 for me until he hits that proverbial cliff.
You know what? I respect the pick. I personally do not have Russ in my top 10. And I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off, let everybody know now. I don't think Russell is a top 10 quarterback right now. And I think there's a lot into it. But as you said, he is a lover of fine things. Like the deep ball is a fine, beautiful moment. His wife, Sierra, a beautiful woman. He escapes out of beautiful pockets that should be a quarterback's wet dream and turns it into he's running for his life. So, look, I don't know what Russ is, but I think I do know at the end of the day, humans are a creature of habit, and Russ is too much built into his habits in the NFL that he will run out of a perfectly good pocket to get outside and to try to make a play deep down the field. The problem with that is he no longer has his mental equivalent as a receiver in Tyler Lockett. And I do think that's going to be a huge downfall going into the season. Now, we'll have to see, we don't know anything about the receiving core in Denver when you actually think about it, because none of them have played really at all except for Cortland Sutton, but he's coming off of injury, and a major injury at that. So that's also a question mark. So it for me, Russell there's not enough for me to believe Russell ends up a top 15 quarterback right now, let alone a top 10 quarterback. And that is probably my hot take, but yeah, I respect the decision because I do think he has the talent, but I think at the end of the day, he's a creature of habit, just like all humans are, and will eventually fall into the same bad habits if all of a sudden they start to lose.
I will say one thing that's going to be nice that he hasn't had in a while is Javonte at running back with an improved offensive line. That should help them. That should hopefully, in theory, knocks on wood, take some of the steam off of run it. And if you're going to bombs away, it'll make it's easier to bombs away with a play action, and everybody bites a little bit in theory. And KJ Hamler can still run a 4-3. So We will see. We will see. We can go on and on. We
If
can
he
go
could
on
ever
and
make it on
on
the
the
field,
list.
if KJ Hamler could ever make it on the field, that's my only question.
That's a fair point, and we'll see how Jerry Judy fits as well too, because he's not known as a burner, really good young receiver, just not known as a pure burner. So I'm curious how they work him in there.
Here's a scary thought. Over the last 2 seasons, the guy with the most amount of yards and catches out of their entire receiving core, Tim Patrick.
And Patrick. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I love Tim, but now let me be very clear and say I love Tim Patrick as a receiver, and I think he's a great asset. I don't think he's going to be great with Russ, but I do think if they can create a connection, like a la Tyler Lockett, then that's a different story. But I think out of the box, it's not going to be a great fit. But I digress.
Exactly. I digress. In that division, exactly. So we're going to move on to your list now. Number 9. Who are we looking at number 9 on your list?
Yeah, number 9 on my list. I'm going to the old Grizzly veteran himself, formerly of Oakland, Fresno State, now getting his old running mate from Fresno State with him. I'm going with the guy whose brother holds the record for most times sacked in his rookie season. I'm going with Derek Carr, a guy who's coming off, obviously, one of his best seasons, I think, as a quarterback. Not necessarily statistically wise, but in a lot of ways. I mean, there were some statistics he broke last season, but it felt like the leadership level for him last year took an extra step up. Some of those game-winning drives, I mean, we talked about it when we were doing Colorcast for the Raiders last year. It was like every single game was close. Every single game they were in, they had a fighting chance. I mean, you talk about the games they won in overtime, and you're just like, how? Like, how is this the way you guys win this game? This Raiders team with no head coach gave everybody fits, and a lot of it's down to Derek Carr and his weapons. Obviously, Waller was out for a good chunk of that last half of the season, and Derek Carr and Hunter Renfrow diced up some of the best defenses they have in the NFL. I mean, look at Marlon Humphrey cannot stick with Hunter Renfrow. Kenny Moore, love Kenny Moore, best slot corner in the game, cannot stick with Hunter Renfrow.
He got cooked in that game. Like, he got cooked
at all. Yeah, like, so Hunter Renfrow is a big weapon for Derek Carr. Now you add Devontae Adams into this team, Darren Waller. I think on paper he is at least number 9. I think out of the quarterbacks on my list, I think Derek Carr has the biggest opportunity to make himself a top 3 fantasy quarterback this season because of what Devontae Adams is. But I do worry that sometimes, like, he does have that little old gunslinger in him, you know? He gets that Brett Favre in him just a tad bit too much, and that worries me a little bit. But I honestly love it. I do think Derek Carr right now number 9 on paper, but man, give this guy, I think, could make himself a top 3 fantasy quarterback for sure.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to say too much on this. I'm going to jump to number 8 on my list for no other reason the fact that at number 8 on my list is also Derek Carr. So I'm just going to piggyback off of this and go right into it as well too, because I love what Derek Carr has on paper going into the season. Everything you mentioned. I also want to point out a couple of these. This is the one I did the most looking at because I wanted to be sure before I put Derek Carr up here as well too. Like, I wanted to make sure it wasn't just biased because I'm a big Carr fan. But looking back to 2016, the last time when he was an MVP candidate before the injury and was absolutely cooking as well too. One thing they did incredibly well that year was 3-step fade routes and go routes to Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper on the outside. Devontae Adams is now filling that spot as opposed to a Zay Jones or a Henry Ruggs or guys like that as well too. You know, if you leave Devontae one-on-one and they get close to him, he's going to take that 1, 2, 3. He's going to just put that up either front shoulder or back shoulder, depending on how they're guarding Devontae. He's going to feast off of that. And as soon as they start leaning that way, Hunter Renfrow is going to have a 2-way go out of the slot. And you mentioned everybody has fits with that as it is. By the way, there's also Darren Waller, a top 5 tight end in the game, arguably top 3. And he was – so when I look at as far as offensive skill position goes, the Raiders, I think, might have the best overall group in the game. They just might. We'd have to really sit down and think about it, but it's really hard to argue. And you still got Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake in the backfield too. They're both capable of catching the ball as well. We talk about their offensive line. We're really concerned about that. There's not a lot there to be happy about. But the way this team's built, those 3-step drops and getting the ball out are going to be really, really nice. And I think Devontae Adams gives them that extra ability. So I'm taking Derek Carr at 8, and I agree with you. Fantasy football-wise, he could be very, very dangerous, especially Josh McDaniels. I don't know any other place I might feel I don't really care for him as a head coach, and even here I'm not sure about. But we saw Derek Carr go to the playoffs without a head coach really last year. And now you get Josh McDaniels' offense, which we saw what he did with Tom Brady as far as the ball out of his hands before you could blink. He was now with Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, guys like that. Now you got Hunter Renfrow to do that, plus a Devontae Adams. I think this offense is going to be explosive. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the best offense in the NFL next year as far as like yards and points and that sort of thing as well too. And I think Derek Carr is going to be beneficiary of that. And I think he has a very good chance, if he builds off of what he did last season, to be in that MVP conversation, especially if they get that 3-step quick game going as well too, and just to kind of mask that offensive line for you to take your shots. So give me Derek Carr at 8 for a lot of the same reasons you said, plus a little bit more, and look for Devonta Adams to those 3-step fade routes, those 3-step like back shoulder fades. That he's not going to miss a beat. He's not going to. I know him and Aaron Rodgers loves that back shoulder fade to a fault. Devonta Adams is not. He's not going to miss a beat with those as well. So he's going to get to keep doing that as well. So give me Derek Carr at 8.
Yeah, and I actually do want to add on. There's one point you mentioned with them, with guys and slot guys out wide. There's actually now 3 receivers that can play the Y, 3 receivers that can play the slot, and I don't mean just like random receivers. I mean Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller can all play as a Y or X receiver, and they can all play out of the slot. And that's a terrifying thought. Could you imagine having one play where you have Renfrow in the slot and you have Devontae on the outside, and they cross on a will or a switch pattern, and then on the next play you flip it, and you have Hunter Renfrow running his inside zig, and you have Devontae Adams hitting a slant? Like, nobody's gonna stop that. I'm sorry, that's just a dynamic duo. And then you throw Darren Waller in the combination, and you're just like, well, good luck, guys. Like.
And there's still like Demarcus Robinson, who's used to being a receiver 4 and getting loose, and Keelan Cole has had his moments. Like this offense, I think, has the potential to be incredibly explosive. But I can go on and on about this. This is going to be the longest I spend on any one of these picks as well, too. So I'll let you go ahead, take over. Where are you looking at for number 8 on your list?
Well, I guess we're gonna go to my guy, who I'm probably gonna spend my most amount of time on, which is funny because I thought it was gonna be Derek Carr, but I still feel like I have to stand up for this man's reputation as a quarterback, and that is the Jackman himself. The man who somebody just asked him for a bicep by the name of DK Metcalf, just asked him to borrow a bicep. Lamar Jackson coming into camp, like, man, he looks great right now, and he looks great for a throwing running back. But he's not a throwing running back. Thank God, he is a quarterback, and this dude is gonna be so good this year. We have not seen Lamar coming off a bad season yet, and the funny thing about that is he has not, even last season, despite the injuries, despite everything else. It wasn't a terrible season when he was actually on the field. When he was actually on the field, they looked good. The problem was he just wasn't on the field into the season. So you look at that and add in the fact, let's not forget, this man is an MVP. He is a former MVP now, and he is just getting better. He is continuously getting better. I mean, the sky's the limit for Lamar Jackson when he actually puts it all together. Obviously, losing Hollywood is a big miss. But all your receivers are coming back healthy this season. So that's nice. Your defense got revamped. It's going to be up to Lamar to make plays. And honestly, you talk about with Russell, the offense is being built around Russell. It's the same with Lamar. When Lamar's offenses are built around Lamar, he can do what he wants. It's a fantastic thing to watch. That's how he wins an MVP. And people hate on him because he runs the ball a lot. You know what? Screw that. He wins the game as a quarterback. We all were enamored with Mike Vick. Why can we not be the same enamorment with Lamar Jackson? He's doing the same exact thing, except for in the new age, it's even harder to be that type of a quarterback in the new age because there are so much faster, so much more athletic defensive players that are now watching him, and they know he can run, and yet he's still just runs right through the middle, spins around a guy, and then takes it 40 yards up the middle without being touched. Like, you don't do that. Nobody does that. Lamar Jackson did that, though. So, I mean, I don't see why this man, again, still a top 10 quarterback in my eyes, 100% has an opportunity to climb even higher through his career, but he won't climb that high this year because he doesn't have enough weapons, really, in my eyes. But you know what? Still going to be a top 10 quarterback. Easy. Very easy.
So I'm going to mention, he was my honorable mention. He was my swing one that I think could go fly back up or fly back down. He was the other one I was mentioning about. So I'm just going to skip it. He was the one I had is that one right on the outside that could swing up. He's still the best ball carrying running back or ball carrying quarterback in the game, and better than almost any running back, maybe minus like 2 or 3, you could maybe say, as far as just a ball carrier goes. His dynamic ability to run is going to have him appear no matter what happens. I think, spoiler alert, when we do our team predictions right now, things could change. I have the Ravens winning that division because of what is around him as well, too. I think they are loaded. And I think Lamar, when he's healthy, that offense will run through him and J.K. Dobbins and Mark Andrews. The reason I have him drop down is last year passing, he took a big step back. He was at like 16 touchdowns with 13 picks. And we saw a big hole is he could him as well as the Ravens. Greg Roman is at fault too for this, but he is
Yeah.
also at fault himself. They could not be a full cover zero blitz that took away his running lanes. Like when you sent an extra guy, he could not just get the ball out of his hands quick and work with it. Partially the play calling's fault. A lot of it was kind of his fault, just staring and missing guys as well too. Which I'm not. This is why I said he has the ability to swing up or down so far. Because if that's something they worked up on the offseason, that's something that they're prepared for. He's going to jump right back up for me in like that 6, 7, 8 spot as well too. Because off his pure ability when he has the ball in his hands to just explode and make a dynamic run, he's going to be in like at floor. He's probably going to be at like 8, 9, 10 somewhere like that as well too. 8, 9, 10, 11. Just if he never threw another pass again, he's going to be in that top 15 spot. So I think he's going to climb up for me. I was worried about that, and I was worried the first time we saw him got injured last year too, and we saw him kind of struggle in a lot of spots. There were the Browns game where he threw 5 picks. They won the game. That worked out, but he threw 5 picks against the Dolphins. He was terrible. Like there was a lot of moments where he just looked a little bit lost. That was a little mildly concerning, but he's so gifted. I have no doubt he'll bounce back. And spoiler, unless something changes between now and we do the North predictions, I have the Ravens winning that division because I think he's going to bounce back. Surprise, spoiler. And that team is loaded, by the way. Holy cow, is that team loaded when you sit and look at it as well. Mark Andrews, he's top 3, 4 tight end. Rashad Bateman's coming on strong. They have some not big-time receiver weapons, but some quality weapons that will thrive when J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and the team come back. Tyler Linderbaum at center now, too. This is a fun team. We'll talk about them more a lot later on, but I agree. Even though he's not on my list, Action Jackson is still – he's my other pendulum that could fly right back up here and kick a few guys out as well, too. So no throwing running back jokes on here. We will not allow that. That is banished from this podcast as well.
No serious throwing running back jokes.
Touche. Dak Mack and the throwing running back. Moving on to number 7, though. I got the Super Bowl winning quarterback Matthew Stafford here at number 7. First time we saw him kind of outside the dysfunction that is Detroit. 41 touchdowns, 18 picks, game-winning drive in the Super Bowl. Can't really draw it up a whole lot better than that. There were some he was he's everything we talked about him being Detroit's like that super talented quarterback that if only he had something around him, if only they were consistent. Well, we kind of saw that he was the exact same player in Detroit, just now with a stable system as well too, for better and sometimes for worse. Because some of those picks he throws, it's like, what are you doing, Matthew? Against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, he should have thrown the game losing interception, but Jaquiski Tartt has he has 2 left hands, I guess. I don't know what it is. But at the same time, he bounced back from that and went down and won the game too. So like he gets credit where you get knocked, you get credit for how you bounce back as well. When quarterbacks throw picks, I don't think it's the end of the world necessarily. It's the type of picks they throw. And some of Matthew Stafford's, it was especially that Titans game. He's getting spun around and he just throws it right to the corner sitting there. It's like, well, okay, I'll walk into the end zone with this when you're inside your own 5-yard line, or just floating it out wide or trying to force it to a triple cover guy, a Carson Wentz-esque interception, if you will. So when you throw, those are the ones that you don't like. And Stafford had some lulls with some of that, but he still was top 5 in passing yards and touchdowns and was still absolutely sensational nonetheless, and won the Super Bowl with a game-winning drive, led by Cooper Kupp as well too. He has arguably the best receiver in the game at his disposal, and I can't see him taking a step back now that he'll be a little healthier. And I like Allen Robinson coming in there as that number 2 receiver as well, to who he's going to be motivated too. After being QB purgatory the last few years, he's going to be excited. So give me Matthew Stafford at 7. I don't think he's going to go up a whole lot. I don't think he'll go down a whole lot. I think he'll kind of stay through here. Maybe he drops down to 9 if they take a step back with that Super Bowl winning hangover. But at this point, I don't see him like skyrocketing it to like 2, 3, 4, something like that, which is not an insult. He could have been Super Bowl MVP, honestly, if it wasn't for Cooper Kupp being Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate this pick. I love Matt Stafford. Obviously, we talked about the Detroit situation and getting him out of there, and look what happens. Now I'll talk more about Matthew Stafford here in a little bit because he is still on my list to come. But I'm not going to spoil exactly where I have him on my list. So I'm going to jump into my number 7 real fast. And we're going to go a little bit farther away than Matt Stafford. And by a little bit, I mean about 40 yards down the hallway. Sharing the stadium with him is Justin Herbert at number 7 for me. I think Justin Herbert has all the talent in the world. I think the biggest thing we're dealing with right now is that division. Can he overcome that division? Look, we watched him in person, and some of those throws we watched in person, our jaws dropped. Just like he's throwing these back foot 60-yard bombs, and you're just like, what? Like a 40-yard dart while he's being taken down to his butt, and he's like literally an inch off the ground, and he throws a dart into his receiver's chest, and it doesn't make sense. His pick of the game was because the DB happened to be recovering and ripping it out of the receiver's hands, and that was his pick, like the bad pick. And it's like what Justin Herbert can do with a football is, I think, mind boggling in some ways. And then he has all the weapons, he has all the talent. They brought everybody back. This team is just getting better offensively. And I think, again, this is a young guy that we're going to be looking at for a lot of years to come with a lot of talent. And I think Justin Herbert has a 7 on the board for just pure talent. But I think if you're like fantasy rankings wise, top 5 quarterback by the end of the season.
You know, I'm just going to skip right ahead to my number 6 because we just got alluding to it again. I have Justin Herbert at number 6, just right ahead. Everything you said. He's the cleanest. He might be the cleanest thrower of the football as well, too. Everything is so fundamentally sound. The beautiful motion, the spiral, the fundamentals in the pocket, everything you mentioned as well, too. He can move with that touchdown pass against the Giants is still one of the best throws you'll ever see, rolling to your right while getting hit, throwing a 60-yard bomb at the end of the half. He's absolutely sensational. My only qualms with him could be is sometimes he's a little robotic. He doesn't have that little, how do I want to word this? He doesn't freelance too well. That's how I'm going to word it. He's not a very good freelancer. He's very much when everything is the way it should be, he'll rip you apart. But then you see sometimes where he has to freelance in a few games like that Ravens game last year, the Houston Texans game, which made no sense. There's when he has a tough time breaking out of that robot shell. When he does do it, when he has done it, like at the back half of that Raiders game at the end of the year, when basically it was Staley was like, save me, Justin. Justin Herbert went full Madden on everybody. Was throwing touchdown passes on 4th and 17 for some reason. He's so capable of doing so many things. I want to see him freelance just a little bit more and be a little less fundamentally perfect and a little more just get the ball and get out of my way type of thing as well too. Big, strong, athletic. Would you, if I told you he had the strongest arm in the game, would you necessarily argue? I mean, you'd say there's maybe 1 or 2 other guys in that conversation, but it's not blasphemous to say he has the strongest arm in the league. I think like Josh Allen and Mahomes have something to say about it, but
yeah, it feels like as far as we talk about, like, there's a difference between a strong arm too and a guy who could just do something different with it. And I think the way he throws it on a line deep is a lot different than I'd say even what Patty does. Patty throws it like a baseball when he's like throwing from the outfield home plate, where it's got a little bit of a hump in it. Josh Allen does throw it along on a line, but I think even Aaron Rodgers still might be the best of throwing it that way. But I think Justin Herbert, to your point, Justin Herbert's within 5 yards of all of these guys, whether it's throwing it on an arc or on a line. I think he's within 5 yards of all of them. So yeah, no, I completely agree.
Like you can't really, it's like there's not a big argument when it comes to him as the strongest arm as well too. And if they bring that back in the Pro Bowl challenge, that'd be glorious. But Justin Herbert very easily could climb. They have to make the playoffs this year. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That team is absolutely loaded. It might be one of the best rosters in the game. He could free fall if they have like another 9-8 season as well too. Like his numbers are sensational, but we need a little bit of something to back it up. That's what kind of keeps him here in that 6th spot for me as well too. But the potential's there. We could be talking about him as an MVP candidate and a fantasy football darling nonetheless.
Yeah, and it's funny the difference between me and you with Matthew Stafford and Justin Herbert is you have him a little bit higher for the fantasy ranking wise. I have Matthew Stafford at number 6 for the winning the Super Bowl wise. Like, I got to give him a little bit of credit because he won the Super Bowl, so I got to give him that little bit of a nod. Plus, he's dealing with the number 1 receiver right now in my eyes on his team. Plus, you add Allen Robinson in there. I do think when you talk about freelancing, this is the one thing Matt Stafford has over Justin Herbert, which is also to his detriment. You mentioned it earlier. He's being spun around and throws the ball right to a corner's chest, and it's like, yeah, okay, you can't do that. But at the same time, he sees Cooper Kupp running a seam route, doesn't even cross the safety yet, but he sees the safety's flat-footed and says, you know what, why not? Let me throw it up. And they beat the Bucs on what is the stupidest throw-it-up play I've ever seen in my life, and it worked. Because Matthew Stafford is that type of a freelancer, where he is just like, he sees something sometimes just unnaturally. And I mentioned Brett Favre earlier. I'm going to mention it here again. He has a lot of that Brett Favre gunslinger in him, where, yeah, it's going to hurt sometimes, but it's what you do after you throw the pick. It's not what you do when you throw the pick. It's what you do after you throw the pick. And how timely is that pick? Is that pick in the 3rd quarter where it doesn't really matter? Or is that pick on that game-winning drive in the 4th quarter like what Dak throws? That's the question.
Like, or just doesn't snap the ball and gets in the way of the official trying to set the ball. But
we're not going to talk about that one. That's going to be on the blooper reel for the end of the forever eternity for the NFL. Absolutely. But yeah, so that's my number 6 is Matt Stafford. As I said, like, this is we're now at the point where we're going to be cutting hairs between our picks, I feel like.
Absolutely as well too. Where I have number 5, this is the epitome of a freelancer. Honestly, I think he is almost at his best when he is freelancing. I'm putting Joe Burrow at number 5 because when you see his pocket manipulation, everything we talked about where I was completely driving this train when he was at LSU has carried over to the NFL, and he's gotten better too at it as well. His ability to dodge people, his ability to he has the nice mix of screw it, Jamar out there somewhere, and okay, we got to keep this drive going. There's Joe Mixon there. There's T. Higgins underneath. There's Tyler Boyd. He has a really good mix of that as well too. He does throw some of those questionable "what are you doing" picks. Like I think in the Ravens game where he just threw it directly at Marlon Humphrey for no reason in the red zone. He's got, but as you mentioned, it's how you bounce back from it, and he bounces back from it as well as anybody. So honestly, because he got to the Super Bowl and he did it with a lot of that freelancing ability with that wet tissue paper offensive line, and now that offensive line's rebuilt, now you got a year with all the weapons. That's why Joe Burrow, basically results wise, him and Herbert, I think they tie up. They're dead even, but Burrow has a little bit of the results, and that a little bit of ability when things are going goofy, he can make something great. So give me Burrow at 5.
I obviously love your pick because I didn't get much different whatsoever at all, and I went Joe Burrow as well at number 5 for everything you said, and obviously giving him credit for getting to the Super Bowl with that offensive line. We all remember the little stick figure drawing of you take Penei Sewell, Joe Burrow stands up and throws a touchdown to Tyler Boyd. You take Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow is getting sacked in the backfield and not being able to throw the ball to Jamar Chase. Well, he said, "Forget you guys, I'm going to do it anyways," and boom, we all saw him. And that's just an idea for the future, and they're just getting better. What they've done for that offensive line in the offseason, boom, I love it. So you know what, Joe Burrow, I'm going to say at number 5. And again, you talk about fantasy, he has one of the best receiving cores, period. You look at this, you talk about with the Rams, you talk about with the Raiders, how good their receiving cores are. This might be a better or the same receiving core as what we just talked about with them. So very good for Joe Burrow right here. But now we're getting into the top 4, and DJ, I feel like, again, cutting hairs here. Where are you going with number 4?
So this is where I get called blasphemous, and I'm going to get yelled at, especially by that list we talked about earlier. I have Aaron Rodgers now sitting at number 4, the back-to-back MVP. Outstanding these last 2 years. What is it, like 60 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, or even less than that, if I'm not mistaken. He's incredible. My problem is when you watch him play, he used to be so good at just like throwing. He was a safe gunslinger, if that made sense. Like he threw some absolutely incredibly dangerous throws, but they were always perfectly right on the money and made it happen. He kind of quit doing that last year, minus like that game-winning drive against the 49ers in the regular season. Other than that, though, it was always smoke pattern here, flare pass here to Aaron Jones, dumping it off here, dumping it off there. He missed that little extra something, if that made sense. That made Aaron Rodgers so good. He was efficient. The numbers were off the charts. He was basically Nikola Jokic, honestly, is how I look at it. He was like the numbers, the advanced metrics, all that were incredible, but he was missing that extra something that could kind of propel him to win games that he used to do. So still incredible. He's just number 4. I mean, you lose Devonta Adams. It's hard to like put you much higher. Like it's hard for me to put him higher when we look at these other 3 guys we're going to be talking about. We already all know who they are as well, too. And Aaron could easily swing right back up. He proves to do the same thing without Devonta Adams. He'll be right back at the top. But give me Aaron Rodgers at 4 right now. And still a Hall of Famer, still a top 15, 10, 12 quarterback all time.
I respect the choice. I do not have Aaron Rodgers at number 4, surprisingly. I'm not going to talk more about Aaron Rodgers because I will talk about him in a minute. But number 4 for me is Tom Brady. Now, this is only because he came out of retirement. If he had never gone to retirement and gone back, I'm still saying he's a top 3 quarterback. But
he took a 60-day vacation. We're not counting that as retirement. That was a tension point.
It's the way it came about. It's the words that he used when he did his retirement speech. If there's ever a time I feel like I'm not enjoying this game, I know I'm done. He thought he was done this offseason.
And he had to spend that full few days at home with the wife, and he's like, okay, I need to get away.
Yeah, I don't know what the reason is that he came back out. We all know he's a competitor, so we all know it's probably why. He wants that competition, he wants that drive. But it does make me worry a little bit about going into the future. Now, he does get Jimmy Graham, which is huge. He does lose Gronk, which is also huge. But again, replacing him with Jimmy Graham, not a bad option. But you do also lose, well, not a whole lot, but you lost a few weapons out there. Yeah, you lost a few weapons out wide. And honestly, it's not like you lost major weapons. You just lost a couple weapons.
You lost Antonio Brown, but then you brought in Russell Gage as well, too, who's less likely to throw a hissy fit on the sideline. So maybe maybe it works out.
He is Antonio Brown without all the headaches of the recent years. Not Antonio Brown, not Antonio Brown, the best receiver in the game. This is we're talking AB without all the theatrics. So I mean, there's a differentiation between the two. If you guys haven't heard us had that conversation, just flash back to our conversation about AB a couple back in last November. We had a conversation about him, so that'll be a full breakdown of AB. So, but give me Tom Brady at number 4 for this one, DJ. Now we're in the top 3. Obviously, I probably spoiled one of your top 3 picks here, but who's your number 3?
Number 3, I have a guy who could very easily be number 1, and I saw a quarterback list that had him at number 1 as well too. It was actually, I think, it was Chris Sims' quarterback list having number 1. I have Josh Allen at number 3. He has more rushing touchdowns than Lamar Jackson since they both entered the league, which is crazy to think about. Passing touchdowns wise, he's right up there with the best of them as well too. Last year, all of his stats were down, but he was still an MVP candidate and the leading fantasy scoring quarterback. That's how absolutely ridiculous he was as well too. Him and Stephon Diggs, one of the better quarterback receiver duos. Gabriel Davis exploded on the scene, especially in that playoff game. Dawson Knox has showed up. They got in OJ Howard. They might actually run the ball this next year. We'll wait and see, but I have hope we'll see them run the ball without just being Josh Allen every play. I think the defense is going to be improved as well. Trey White's going to come back. Von Miller coming in. There's a lot to like with him. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities with that defense. Josh Allen's just absolutely incredible. I think he could easily climb his way to number 1. But right now I have him at 3 because he runs as well as anybody not named Lamar Jackson. He throws as well as just about anybody as well too. Still a little erratic, still a little bit too much of that old Josh Allen in him sometimes as well too. What we want to see Aaron Rodgers do more, I want to see Josh Allen do a little bit less sometimes. But he still the amount of he's a playmaker at its absolute finest. Like he's Donovan McNabb but faster and a stronger arm.
I like it a lot. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about Josh Allen because I will talk about him a little bit more as he comes up. So I'm going to go to my number 3 here, and my number 3 is actually, if I can get my computer to work, I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers here. Biggest reason I'm taking Aaron Rodgers, yes, he lost Devontae. That sucks. That hurts a lot of his figure. I worried more about Tom Brady here, and that's why he dropped and Aaron Rodgers took that place. I didn't think Joe Burrow's done enough to get to 3, so it was like Aaron Rodgers by subtraction, you're number 3. And I also do think him getting Robert Tonyan back, Bakhtiari being healthy this season, I think that's going to change a lot of what we saw last year where he just kind of just didn't want to throw some of these balls. And again, you do lose Devontae, you gain Christian Wilkins as well. So we'll see what the rookie can do. But from all signs in camp, he looks good and he looks like a good match for Aaron. And I think that's a big part of it as well. So we'll see. We'll wait and see on this one. But as of right now, I'm just going to say Aaron Rodgers 3. Because of Tom Brady's question mark at the retirement and not retirement and coming back. And yeah, that's why addition by subtraction, basically. So number 2, DJ.
Okay, well, he didn't addition or subtraction for me. He's still sitting right here firmly number 2. I got Tom Brady saying number 2. Led the league in passing yards and touchdowns last year and even kind of slowed down a little bit at the end. You still have Mike Evans, still have Chris Godwin. You still have you still have some of your running backs as well. So you still have Leonard Fournette coming back as well. The offensive line is still solid. Bruce Arians is no longer the coach, which we'll see how that affects things as well too, because I know him and Tom were exactly bros. Your defense is still really good. It's actually still fantastic in a lot of spots as well. I think he could take a step back this year, but until I physically see him take that step back, I will presume he will be the Tom Brady we just saw, who led the league in touchdown passes and yards. So I'm going to say I'm still going to keep him at 2 right now because he's still the quintessential field general. In a similar way that Chris Paul is the quintessential point guard, Tom Brady is like that, but in a way that affects the game even more directly with winning. And if it wasn't for Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp's heroics, he might have been in the Super Bowl last year as well, too. So give me Tom Brady at 2, but he's another one that I don't think he's going up. He's only going to be going down, or he's staying flat-footed at 2 for me.
I respect that. Obviously, I have all the respect in the world for Tom Brady. I just worry, like anytime a player talks about retirement and then comes back from retirement, like the papers were filed, and then he's like, "No, I'm unretiring." Like that's what scares me.
And that's one thing that I could see could plummet him really quickly for me as well too. Yeah. I refuse to bet against him at this point in life because I'm tired of him. You know what? You're wrong.
Yeah, it's like honestly, it's like a lot of things. You learn there's certain people you just don't bet against. I'm not going to bet against Tom Brady. I still think he's a great quarterback. I still think he's a top 5 quarterback. I just worry about where he falls in the top 5 now. It's like I guess it's just where it is. He's still the great. I will amend all previous statements I have made about greatest of all time, and I'm going to go ahead and say it today. My greatest of all time quarterback is Tom Brady because of all his winning aspects, and it hurts me to admit that because I've been on the Peyton Manning train for so long. But yeah, Tom Brady, obviously. Anyways, I'm digressing from what we're doing here. So
Hmm.
my number 2 is a guy that you have a little bit higher, and I love everything he's doing, and it just continues the growth. I'm going Josh Allen here. I think he's going to continue that growth. And again, we talk about biggest arms in the game, what he's able to do with his feet. He is a true dual threat, and not just a dual threat to just run by you. He's a dual threat to run you the F over. Get out of the way. The train is coming. Get off the tracks. This man is coming through, whether it be through his arm, through what he, I mean, him and Gabriel Davis. I could just look at that performance, and that performance by itself was absolutely insane for a guy that is on most people's never going to happen list in
Hmm.
Gabriel Davis. And Gabriel Davis is like, oh, I'm here. I'm a pro. Gabriel Davis just like he is the number 3 option in Buffalo. Probably, honestly, truthfully, to be behind Dawson Knox in Buffalo at this point in time. But I think Josh Allen right now is well and truly on his way to being a 1B opportunity here going forward. But we'll have to wait and see. But I think our number 1 unanimous. I'm not even gonna wait for this one, DJ. I think we're both here unanimously. Patty
It's
Mahomes.
Wilson. Oh, I thought we were talking about quarterbacks that have that dog in them, so I was going with Zach Wilson there with his offseason work ethic. I think he's about to catapult himself up to the top. But yes, Patrick Mahomes is still right there as well too. He had a bad season last year and was still one of the top 3 statistical quarterbacks in the game, and it was a bad season by his incredible standards. Nobody took the mantle from him. He still continues to prove it. We'll see what he does this year without Tyreek Hill. Still got Travis Kelcey. Still going to throw more than 30 touchdowns. Still going to eclipse 4,500 yards probably. He's still fantastic. There's nothing he really can't do other than sometimes read a defense, but he's so good at freelancing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is going to be a big year for him. Obviously, just for posterity's sake, there's my list officially with Patty on it. But yeah, this is a big year for Patty. I think him and Juju is actually going to be a really interesting partnership as well. I think that's going to be huge because now you have a receiver that does a lot of what Travis Kelce does, but he also has that breakaway ability as well. Obviously, not to the level Tyreek does, but breakaway ability nonetheless.